introduction. At this meeting, we have more than 16 participants.
According to the 2013 World Risk Report, the Western Pacific region is notoriously known as the world's disaster epicenter. 10 of the 20 top countries most exposed to natural disasters, such as typhoons, cyclones, of course, earthquakes, floods, and tsunamis, reside in the Western Pacific area. Furthermore, booming economies expose large geographic areas and dense populations to technological research and hazards such as air pollution, contamination of large crop productions with chemical hazards, structural collapses, and transportation accidents. There are more tropical typhoons forming in the tropical western regions of the northern Pacific Ocean than anywhere else in the world. More than 25 tropical storms develop each year, and about 18 of these become typhoons or cyclones. 16 of the 18 deadliest typhoons or cyclones in history occurred in the Western Pacific region. Over the last 100 years, 7 of the top 10 largest flood disasters in the world have occurred in the Western Pacific region. 90% of recorded tsunamis have occurred in the Pacific Ocean, which is bordered by the so-called Ring of Fire, comprised of major geographic subduction zones, where 75% of the world's active and dormant volcanoes are located. Great trans-Pacific tsunamis are typically caused by massive earthquakes located in these subduction zones and occur at mean intervals of once a decade. In a 100-year period from 1895 to 1995, there were 454 tsunamis recorded in the Pacific Ocean, the deadliest of which killed more than 51,000 people. Now, for a few moments, let's look at disaster risk management and its implications to health. In the last 20 years, disaster management has been very reactive, taking action during and after an event. Now, we need a more proactive approach, focusing on managing risks related to different hazards with special and specific activities for all the 4 phases of the disaster risk management cycle, namely prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. In 2005, after the Indian Ocean tsunami, the Hyogo framework for action was created to offer a set of actions to substantially reduce human and economic losses and build the resilience of nations and communities to disasters. Countries are now using a more comprehensive and long-term approach to identify the hazards, assess vulnerabilities, and prepare exposed communities for disasters before they occur. As the new post-Hyogo agenda for disaster risk reduction has begun to emerge, aiming to avoid new risk to emerge in addition to reducing existing ones, it is clear that the health sector must take a more active role in disaster risk reduction with strong linkages to other sectors and an emphasis on emerging partnerships amongst governments, communities, and organizations. Let's for a few moments now look at Fiji's disaster management and put things into perspective. Fiji is situated in one of the most natural disaster-prone areas in the world. Some hazards occur as a consequence of tropical depressions and cyclones or as part of the tropical weather conditions that normally affects the region. There have been 36 recorded natural disasters in Fiji since 1980, with 221 fatalities and over $1 billion worth of economic damage to Fiji's economy. Natural disasters such as Cyclone Evan, which battered Samoa and Fiji in 2012-13, and the devastating earthquakes and tsunamis in Solomons recently remind us again of the power of nature and the vulnerability of the high level of risks to the Pacific nations associated with climate change impacts and natural disasters. The health costs and implications of these disasters are often underestimated. In Fiji, at this juncture, I would like to share Fiji's Ministry of Health approach to disaster management. The guiding principles of disaster management of health, as defined in a plan known as the Health, Emergency and Disaster Management Plan Action Plan, the HEADMAP. This document was developed during the SARS and avian influenza events and has been periodically reviewed. The document attempts to encompass the 4 phases of disaster risk management and focuses 4 key components identified in the regional framework of action for disaster risk management for health, namely governance, policy, planning, and coordination, information and knowledge management, health and related services and resources. A key focus of Fiji's Ministry of Health has also been to ensure that our health facilities are safe during disasters. Periodic inspections of all health facilities are conducted on a periodic basis, and planning for new facilities are carefully considered to avoid future disasters. We are in the process of moving our last health facility to higher ground as part of our capital development. Our ministry has established a unit within the ministry which looks after health disaster risk management, developing policies, guidelines, and standard operating procedures for health staff. The Ministry of Health also works very closely with our National Disaster Management Office to align itself towards a collective vision of ensuring the population at risk are well prepared and to reduce risks both to human life and the systems important to their livelihood. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, disaster preparedness is everyone's business. The disaster, whether natural or human caused, can sometimes be unavoidable. But we must prepare ourselves to be ready if they do happen and to minimize the impact of the disaster to human beings and human life. Disasters affect all walks of life, and it is our duty to mitigate the effects of the disaster. In the Pacific, we are fortunate to have kind offers of international partner assistance in times of disasters. And I would like to thank you, those partners, for assisting us in our hour of need. However, being prepared for the unexpected takes planning, and this gathering is a landmark event. As we prepare for the next World Conference on Disaster Risk Management in 2015 in Japan, and stamp our health mark towards disaster risk management in health. I am indeed grateful to WHO towards organizing this workshop, and I wish you all a successful workshop, and I look forward to hearing of the resolutions and the outcomes of this meeting and what actually transpires at the World Congress. Thank you for your attention. Have a happy stay in Fiji.